Speaking live with your host Frank Holzhauser and my empty chair co-host David Kaniuk. I assume he's going to be here. That's what I think we discussed on a Facebook email last night. So be waiting his arrival. But until the meantime, I'll start the show with a couple of things that posted on Facebook here. Watched a debate. Oh, again, Maddie's producing this week, so say hi, Maddie, for all of our viewers. If you'd like to join the show, let me get the call number out. That would be 855-244-0077. That would be toll free. And if you're calling in the local Des Moines area, that's 244-0077. We didn't have a show last week because Maddie had some issues with her garbage disposal backing up and some plumbing issues that were leaking in her kitchen. So we decided to not have a show. So if I share a few things that I've shared in the past, forgive me, but I've kind of forgotten a little bit what we left off on a couple of weeks ago. I know we wanted to discuss the topic of Ebola. So we'll get started. I watched a debate last night involving Kansas Senator Pat Roberts and his challenger Greg Orman. Pat is very sagacious, which sagacious in the dictionary is wisdom and discernment. And he didn't stray a lot off his message of, quote, shut down the border, no amnesty, and you can't stop Harry Reid and check Obama if the Republicans don't gain back the Senate. Which reminds me, if you haven't, get out and vote. And I voted for Joni Ernst for Iowa Senate. So as Pat said, if Republicans don't gain the Senate, it's clear landing for Obama. Now, I can't vote in Kansas, but I can vote in Iowa, and so can you, for those of you who are listening in Iowa. And my co-host is here just in time.
That's some parking, guys.
Get him.
Good night.
The parking was a little
rough this week.
A little maddening this week. Are we having some problems of flooding or something going on?
I have no idea.
I seen there was some water main or something that was broke, exuding some water out of the...
Well, we're here now. We're ready to kick some tail.
Well, I should hope so. We had, I was mentioning before you came that Maddie had some plumbing issues last week with a garbage disposal backing up because of a compression fitting.
Oh.
So she was getting water all over. Messy person. And so I kind of had forgotten where we had left off a couple of weeks ago, but I did know we wanted to touch on the topic of Ebola.
Well, put some gloves on before you do that.
Yeah. Here's some hand sanitizer over here.
Yeah,
too.
Thank you very much. I don't know, the hub door entrances seem just disgusting to me. I don't know why.
Maybe
it's because it's right by a Burger King.
Well, okay.
Yeah, Maddie's shaking her head. She's like, yeah. It's like that feeling you get when you drive down Southeast 14th and you wander into Walmart down there.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to go home and take a shower now.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting. And I'm sorry if you live on this.
It's terrible that a newer Walmart should look that bad.
That's true. That is very true. When I worked retail, the gaming store that was down there was called Funco Land.
Yeah.
And then our company eventually bought it out. So I would get sent over there whenever a manager would get fired. Basically, I would get sent over there to clean up the ship for a little while. And it was just horrid.
Well, a tip-off for me is when you go in there about midnight and the trash cans are all on top of the cash registers. That always makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
It's not like I'm like an elitist who lives on the west side or something. I live on the east side.
There's east side stuff that ain't that rundown.
Yeah.
Well, I just got to my first story, and I'll mention this story now, since I mentioned Ebola and we mentioned we had hand sanitizer. Barry says apparently you can't get Ebola sitting next to someone. Okay, you sit next to them and your girls next to them.
Why don't we bring Ebola patients and have them in the White House? Just have them in one of the wings of the White House there and care for them there if it's so non-contagious. I think it was the CDC head this week who said, now, if you're sitting on a bus, you can't catch Ebola from someone on a bus, but you can catch it on a bus.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what he said. He said, you can't catch it on a bus, but you can catch it on a bus. Like, it is contagious.
That guy talks in circles. But you probably, but I'd say Michelle, but you'd probably want to get rid of her, you know. If it's that safe, you lead, buddy. But that won't happen. Again, the hypocrisy, do as I say, not as I do.
We'll get to I guess my real thoughts on this in a moment, but yeah, let's hit on the hypocrisy for a second. We all agree that Katrina was not the most well handled situation that has ever
well-oiled
occurred.
machine.
Yeah. We all snickered at George W. Bush when he said, "You're doing a heck of a job, Brownie."
Yeah.
At Michael Brown, the political appointee. Right. However, where is the outrage over everything going on with the Ebola situation? Where is the outrage over everything that they have told us being completely 180 from the truth of the situation? Where is the outrage over Tom Friedman having zero experience with healthcare issues whatsoever, and then this new Ebola czar that they're hiring today is just a political appointee?
The thing that bothers me about all of it is the definitive answers, pro or con about it, like they really know. And nobody, it's. I'm not saying it's a new disease because it's been around a while. There's been some scares of it in the past half a dozen years or whatever. I think it even may go back 10 years. But the point being is, how do they say something definitive when they just frankly don't know?
Right. Well, they do that to allay public fears and everything, but the public should be scared. They don't want the public to be outraged over this. They don't want the public to get wise, because it's remarkable that you would have this many different things go wrong, that you would have this level of ineptitude. And it's just, you cannot have this level of ineptitude. So this has to be an intentional spreading of the disease. Every protocol that had ever been set forth for contaminating an infectious disease has been violated during this Ebola run.
Supposedly, some of these nurses were in full contamination gear.
Exactly.
And still got the virus.
Well, they were in like half contamination gear because they were only being issued like half gear. They weren't being issued full suits, level 4 suits that you're supposed to be issued. It came out today, I think in Defense One, that the Presbyterian Hospital down in Dallas, when this Duncan guy went over there and said, "Hey, I'm sick. I've been to West Africa, BTW. There's something in the news about that." And then they sent him home. They had a machine there that was specifically designed for detecting Ebola. However, FDA regulations prevent them from using it unless it's for studying the microorganism. So they can't use it to screen patients per FDA guidelines, but they can use it under a microscope. I mean, how ridiculous is that? And then they still violate their own protocol because he would have flagged all of the indications for somebody that should be watched or monitored, and they still sent him home anyway. And then you've got later on one of the nurses that treated him. She's going off and flying to Cleveland. She's got a fever. She calls the CDC. "Hey, I treated Duncan. I've got a fever. You think maybe I should fly?" "Oh, yeah, go ahead." I mean, come on. At what point do we stop saying, "Yeah, you guys are idiots," and saying, "Yeah, you guys are intentionally trying to spread this"?
Well, I mentioned to you, and we haven't been on for a couple of weeks, and I was just mentioning at the start of the show.
And that's really Maddie's fault.
Yes, it is.
She works for them.
I was mentioning...
Maddie, the Luciferian scum!
I was mentioning here at the start of the show that, forgive me if I say anything I've said in a previous show, but I think it was I think her name was Lori Garrett, and she appeared on MSNBC, NBC. I think she was some commentator from the Overweight Lesbian Senior Fellow. I'm not sure.
Senior Fellow on Overweight Lesbian Studies?
Yeah, something to that effect. But she done exactly what I predicted here a couple weeks ago, that any effort to quarantine West Africa would be met with the charge of racism. And that's exactly what she espoused here a couple of weeks ago on NBC.
Yeah, that's basically what they're saying. Oh, you want to quarantine Africa? That's racism. It's going to hurt the African economy if we do this. Who cares? Who cares? You're in the U.S. government. You're not in the world government. You're in the U.S. government. Your job is to watch over the American citizens and keep them.
Well, the number one job of the president is to protect the country and protect the citizens. And he's lax in his duty if he's not putting a quarantine on flights coming in here from areas that have this virus, right?
Absolutely. He is lax. And his reasoning for this is, well, then you're going to have people who are lying a little bit more about it, and they're going to have people who are trying to go to other countries, so they're disguising their countries of origin. Well, okay, yeah, you're going to have that, but having to go to all those other countries is going to add more expense to their travel, which they're actually being issued visas to get over here, BTW. So it's going to add more expense to their travel, theoretically. It's going to add more hurdles to their travel. Plus, if you've got other countries who are now involved with having to get somebody over here, that's going to make them have to screen as well. So you have more of a chance, actually, of them being caught if you deny flights.
Here's the real scary part. If this thing should catch on, say, in Mexico, we will literally not be able to stop our borders of people flooding into this country trying to get medical attention.
Right. And for all of those people who are for open borders, Obama, Jeb Bush, who says Fallon. It's an act of love, you know what? The blood is on your hands. Vincent Bugliosi, I think we've talked about this before, but Vincent Bugliosi years ago wrote a book about I think it was called The Trial of George W. Bush for Murder. And his argument was that Bush could be tried for murder because of going to war in Iraq under false pretenses. Why couldn't you use that same standard to put the blood on the hands of Obama? Because it's his dereliction of duty, his intentional keeping the borders open, his intentional letting people come in from these countries that are stricken with disease. It's his policies that are doing this. So everybody who dies from Ebola, who catches it in this country, and everyone who dies of the Obama flu, which is the enterovirus that's being brought in by all these Hispanics that are coming in and illegals that are coming in from the southern border, and then the kids are being integrated into all the schools, and everyone's like, well, why are our children suddenly getting sick with this respiratory? Some of them even have like a polio type aspect to this. All of that blood is in Obama's hands.
Well, another hot story this week, and I'm going to skip some of the things I've done in the past for these more up-to-date stories, but I pinned this week that persecution is here in the United States. 5 Houston, Texas pastors have had their sermons subpoenaed looking for anti-gay rhetoric. Hate speech and hate crime legislation is next. The gays are so tolerant, we've been told. Well, this is also from the watered-down I'm okay, you're okay, we're all okay sermons that some spineless pastors are preaching. Where's John the Baptist when you need him? The battle's on, folks. Get ready and batten down the hatches.
Yeah, you're 100% right. The whole tolerance thing is not tolerance at all. It's nothing more than fascism, basically. It's fascism in order to... It's not about acceptance. It's about celebration. It's to get you to not have any type of moral opposition to what you might consider immoral. It's basically allowing the state to determine morality.
All right, this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your co-host Frank Holzhauser and your host Frank Holzhauser and my co-host David Canuck. I'll get that out and get it right here in a second.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk. I'm a little out of practice. We didn't have a show last week, and I didn't do a whole lot of talking on Mac's show today. So I'm a little out of practice from the show. But I did want to mention my friend Ed Fallon is on his march across America. I'll get back to the Houston, Texas story here in a second. But starting in about Gary, Indiana to Youngstown, Ohio, then to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Ed is decrying the urban blight and decay he's encountering. What he seems to ignore is it's his side's liberal progressive policies that's at fault. All the above mentioned towns and states have been directly affected by the gutting of the car industry in Detroit, from steel to all the forms of vendors, including auto glass, nuts, bolts, screws, and various fasteners. The EPA and this nation's corporate rate tax have chased most of our industry overseas. If you had a choice between 37 or 13% tax rate, what would you choose? Along with union labor, pension plans is killing the industry. Immigration and cheap labor is killing the last jobs we have. So it's cheaper for states to develop a new tract of land and to go in and then repair decayed infrastructure. Thus, new suburbs pop up while existing suburbs die. But liberals care, you know.
You mean globalization didn't work? Shipping all our manufacturing to China didn't work?
I contend it's their office and wallet they care about, your wallet they care about, but look at any major city or state that's near bankrupt, that's run by liberals. Chicago, Detroit, New Orleans, New York, New Jersey, all the California's been put in run by Democratic policies. Radical environmentalists is the worst danger to this country's business and corporations, farming, and industry. Wake up, folks. Ed is a good man, but he's delusional and lives in fantasy land and is seeking utopia, but at least he walks the walk. I can't say that for his puppet masters. They'll use him as a useful dupe and scarf up anything that he saves. But
yeah, I hate to even call Ed Fallon a liberal because he's not really a liberal in the classical Jeffersonian sense of the term. I would actually call him a utopian.
Yeah.
He is a utopian. He's like, if we just do this without any practical applications of this, if we just do this, everything will be wonderful. And then they're shocked when they actually get in the real world and see, well, wait a second, this isn't what we thought it would be. But then again, utopians are so blind usually. They follow utopianism as a religion, so that when they do get in the real world, they won't even admit that it was their own stupid policies in the first place that screwed everything up.
And they deny the Creator the worship that they're given the earth his gift.
Right.
So the gift giver gets denied the worship while the gift gets the worship.
Right.
But going back to this Houston pastors having their sermon subpoenaed, apparently the Houston mayor is a openly gay woman who is, I guess, got she's married supposedly to another woman. And I just see this as the opening salvo to the persecution where the Bible depicts in Revelation that the lamb-like beast would soon begin to speak as a dragon. Mm-hmm. And you have some even more nefarious things that you think the United States is involved in than I. I may agree with some of them. I won't say I don't agree with them. But I think this is just open persecution, and
Absolutely.
I think this is the opening shot.
No, I agree with you 100%. It is. I mean, there have been a lot of opening shots, but I think you're right. I think this is something completely new, completely different. This is a floodgate being opened up. And this really is the problem, I think, with the whole 501c3 regulations of churches to give them tax-exempt status. Well, they should be granted tax-exempt status anyway because it's a religious organization. But when you let the government come in and regulate a religion, then you're giving them ownership over that religion. So, you see people who argue, whenever somebody wants to argue the point that, persecution and the tribulation is coming, you've got the pre-tribulation people who want to argue that, no, the church hasn't been removed yet. But you could kind of argue that it has been with the 501c3. We've given up our authority to the government to regulate us.
Well, when you allow the government to get their foot anywhere near the religious door, mm-hmm. and you allow them to get their foot in the door, they're not going to stop.
Exactly.
Until absolute persecution is a result, and I contend the mark of the beast will be the ultimate persecution, and I believe a death decree will go out for the Christians at some point.
Right. I mean, we're 100% on that. And what I guess my point is, there are still so many people out there, so many so-called Christians out there who think that they're just going to get a pass and not face anything. I mean, what about the Christians that are in Syria that are getting beheaded by ISIS?
Sure.
They don't get a pass. What makes you think that you're going to get a pass? What makes you think that you're going to get a pass for being such a good guy that you went to church every Sunday and then you went home and watched football and didn't do anything else over the week?
Well, if a human being is being persecuted, if a Christian brother anywhere in the world is being persecuted, Christ is being persecuted. I'm being persecuted.
Right. Hey, what's the phone number, by the way?
Here?
Yeah.
That would be area code or toll free. That'd be 855-244-0077. That's toll free.
That would be, love to hear some callers on that.
244-0077 if you're in the local Des Moines area.
Let's get a good pre-trib, post-trib rapture fight going on with some callers here.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything in the Bible, I think, states that, the beast makes war with the saints and overcomes them for a time, and they don't rise back up and overcome the beast till Jesus comes back. Well, that would mean that you have to have some Christians on earth to be persecuted and then to win in the end. Yes. So there you go. I mean, somebody's got to be here.
Yes. It just comes down to me, though, that this country was founded on religious liberty. And we've enjoyed, and we've kind of taken it for granted We see stuff that happens in other countries. We hear about persecution of Christians in North Korea or China or Russia. We hear these stories, but it's hitting home here in the U.S.
And that's I think is the problem with the attitude of people in America. We've never really known persecution like that. We've never really known tyranny, and we've grown up now and gone several generations, and now we have this attitude of, oh, well, it can't happen here. This is America. I remember arguing about gun control with some moron on Facebook, and I will call them a moron. They were just literally had an 87 IQ as far as I could estimate. But I kept trying to bring up points about what happens in a society when you don't allow self-defense. Yeah. And I brought up, Hitler took the guns, Mao took the guns, Lenin, Stalin took the guns. And their response was, well, this isn't Germany.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever heard of the saying that says that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it?
Well, everywhere communism takes over, that's one of the first things they take is your right to own and bear an arm.
Exactly. And Mao even said that political power grows from the barrel of a gun. And if you don't have that means of self-defense, and that's what the Second Amendment is all about, is self-defense from a tyrannical government. It's not about hunting, as a lot of Democrats will try to espouse. It's not about hunting. It's about self-defense from a tyrannical government. And that's why they're doing everything that they can to try and keep regulating. California even has a bill now where, I think this passed, where let's say you're my uncle, you got a gun.
Uncle Frank.
And I'm like, you know what? Uncle Frank is he's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
He says, look, I'm going to call up the authorities and say, hey, he shouldn't have a gun. And they'll come and take your gun.
Well,
I'm
where
serious.
is it in the Second Amendment that has anything to do with your mental state of mind to own and bear an arm?
Yeah.
I mean, these are regulations. I mean, we're shooting ourselves in the foot with these regulations.
Right.
These are self-imposed. These aren't things that were in the Second Amendment.
Right. The founding fathers, and I know times were different, but the founding fathers envisioned citizen militias, groups of people for the defense of their own communities.
And the militias was the people.
Right.
Was the citizens.
Exactly. It wasn't a police force. It
wasn't a standing army. A standing army didn't come along till...
Exactly right. Exactly right. So I guess getting back to the point of Christians being persecuted, you're right. It is here. It's going to continue to get worse. This whole anti-bullying agenda is nothing more than a masquerade to try and push down religious thought, religious freedom, and religious expression. It's trying to create a new pseudo-religion almost. And it's also trying to build up a wall of hatred between those who follow this new pseudo-religion and those who do follow Christ.
Well, I got a story I want to share real quick for the top of the break, and I don't know if I shared this a couple of weeks ago, but if I did, I apologize. But Cato Byrne authored a book a number of years back documenting the destructive feminist agenda. Its title was To the Effect the 100 Worst Women in the World. In it, she lays out their agenda, the names of those promoting it. Here's a brief example of the agenda. Men are not wanted or needed in the home. Mothers are a hindrance. Children should be in daycare. Baseball promotes violence against women. Boys who exhibit any masculine traits should be put on Ritalin. History books should talk less about men and war and talk more about the contributions of women. Marriage constitutes slavery for women. Consensual sex between married couples is nothing more than marital rape. Abortion is the woman's independence flag over the womb. Childbearing is a burden to women that they should overcome. They will never be totally equal with men. Women and young girls should be taught to be as coarse and vulgar as men have been through history. The traditional marriage institution should be destroyed and replaced with unions of multiple members, including family members, and should be entered into and exited out of at will. These people hate God, His church, the hierarchy that women has women placed in a submissive role to men. Men have women confined in shackles, and college sports should offer more scholarships to females, not to have more women in sports, but to force the universities to close men's programs according to Title IX rules. And funny things, these are their words. They make no secret about what they're attempting to do.
No, that's 100%. You do see all of those messages being permeated throughout entertainment and all of society right now. And I guess I would even add on for the transgender amendment. If you're born a boy, you may not be a boy.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
anymore.
I was really curious about baseball promoting violence against women like football and professional wrestling.
When was that? When was that written?
That was probably 10 plus years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I think she was thinking of the old mind. But yeah, football, I think, is far more violent. I mean, we got people who are beating their...
We had Ray Rice knock his girlfriend out in an elevator because
and
he's
isn't
all...
it amazing that there was no movement to boycott the NFL
Yeah.
over Roger Goodell basically boldface lying to the press about it? Everyone just sweeps that under the rug. It's amazing. He covers up his NFL player beating the heck out of a woman in an elevator, yet Mitt Romney is an evil, evil son of a gun because he wanted to hire a woman and had somebody compile a dossier of qualified women candidates.
Aerosmith wrote a song about that, wasn't it? Love in an elevator? That's your true love. Knock your woman out in the elevator. That's your...
Well, maybe it's part of the knockout game that's been popular among the racial youth.
Sure.
In different cities.
Well, we're coming up on our top of the hour break, and this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, compadre, David Canute Jr. And we'll return after the break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk. I'm going to pick up again here a little bit on Ebola, but before I get to that, I just want to... I try not to make this show so much about politics. I want it to be more faith-oriented, and, despite all the mayhem and chaos that seemingly goes on in the world, that the Christians should stand firm and stand strong. And so while I will continue to talk politics, I want to try to get a few more faith lessons in here. And here's something I typed this week. There's some lessons every Christian should learn from the first king of Israel, King Saul. First, if Saul would have obeyed God, his kingdom would have lasted forever. But Saul followed his own pride and self-centeredness, but he made 3 critical mistakes. He offered an offering that only the prophet Samuel should have. Second, he allowed the fear of his people to stop judgment from being passed on Jonathan, his son. Third, he did not carry out God's precise order to destroy the Amalekites, something God had deferred, judgment that God had deferred on the Amalekites for over 400 years. But Saul took the king prisoner and much of the spoils. And this could tie a little bit into Ebola. But when confronted with his sin, Saul blamed it on the people for his own disobedience. Saul presumed he could disobey without notice, but when he was caught, he was sorry for the harsh penalty, but not the sin. Saul was neither humble nor teachable, and would not accept reproof or correction from God, even though, quote, chosen by God, he offered presumption, the counterfeit of faith, which did not please the Father. But his final fall from grace into apostasy was the personal insult he returned to God by engaging the spirit of idolatry and necromancy by consulting the witch of Endor. This marked Saul's losing his eternal soul. A lesson: don't disobey God, and when you do, be quick to repent with real confession. But some of these judgments that seem kind of harsh, that God asked Saul to go in and basically destroy the Amalekites top to bottom. Mm-hmm. Men, women, children, grandmas, grandpas, animals, spoils, burn the village, burn everything. Because of a little bit of disease, viruses, contamination, that he did not want his nation of Israel spoiled with any of the spoils. But Saul took the king a prisoner, and he took a lot of the oxen, he took a lot of the lambs, he took a lot of the animals as spoils, and then as an after excuse, he said, well, the people wanted it and was going to offer in offerings to Christ. God said, I don't want you to have none of that.
Right.
So you could take the AIDS virus, you could take SARS, you could take Ebola. A lot of times, a lot of these tribes who were heathenistic tribes didn't have the cleanest hygienic practices. Mm-hmm. And when God said destroy something, he meant destroy it. Now, he wasn't being cruel in that destruction.
Right.
It wasn't being harsh destruction, because he was long-suffering with a lot of these people. He had deferred this judgment on the Amalekites for 400 years. And he was willing to bring them into Israel, but they had to give up their heathenistic practices to join Israel, the nation. Mm-hmm. So I guess the point I wanted to make is don't disobey God. And when you do, repent quickly with real confession.
Excellent. So
that was kind of a segue to get back into the Ebola story that you wanted to mention a little bit more about, because you said you had some problems with your internet this week.
Yeah, my internet at home has been completely down. So and Mediacom has been so helpful.
They're sorry.
They are so sorry.
They're sorry.
Yeah.
But you didn't get to print a lot of stuff off. But you did said you had a few links that you wanted to mention.
Well, there was a point that I wanted to dovetail on what you were saying about deferred judgment and everything. How long do you think it's going to take for the United States to be judged as a nation?
We may be going through it right now.
Exactly. I mean, allowing 60 million babies to be aborted, everything else that we've done. I mean, we're not a sinless nation.
That's legal abortions.
Oh, well, that's holy then.
Yeah, not that's the ones that are legal by law.
Yeah, with the persecution, the allowing of every type of wickedness. I mean, how long do you think it's going to take I think Billy Graham, there was a headline on Drudge. I haven't read the story yet. It was just out today. I think Billy Graham is quoted as saying that America now is more evil than Sodom and Gomorrah back in the day. I mean, think about that. Think about that.
Well, a lot of Christians early on with the AIDS virus said that AIDS was God's judgment on homosexuality. I thought that was a little harsh because actually the way I understood it, and the way I still understand that the AIDS virus is not, the vast majority of gay men, particularly the ones that come in contact with HIV, but they won't, the vast majority of them will never, their body will reject it, or, in other words, where it's really spread and the real rampant spread of it is between intravenous drug user homosexual community.
Yeah.
It's not so much the homosexuality, while I'm not excusing that. But what do we blame? Do we blame this diseases? Do we blame SARS? Do we blame Ebola? Do we blame AIDS? Do we blame stuff on disobedience, God's disobedience, or do you think that it's, obviously all disease and sickness and sin comes from ultimate disobedience. But do you think, for example, AIDS is God's condemnation of gay people?
I'm not sure. I really don't. It could be part of it. I've also, Dr. Len Horowitz wrote a book about AIDS, talking about how it was actually a manufactured virus. It's a number of different viruses kind of mixed together and kind of used as almost like a bioweapons release.
Well, we had...
But even so, even if okay, it's revealed that, yes, it was something that was created in a lab, it's still out in the wild now. And it's still, how can that... You still can't discount it as being part of judgment.
Well, then there's that extreme of a Christian saying, well, it's God's judgment on the gays. And then you've got the pendulum that swings back to that other extreme of people saying, well, white doctors shot black people in Africa with it on purpose to kill the black race. Now,
right, and it's somewhere in between.
Could it be somewhere in between?
Right, and that's not what I'm trying to argue, but God can use something like that for judgment.
Well, I'm asking in the vein of the new Ebola scare.
Is it judgment on America?
Is it judgment on America, or is it, like we talked about AIDS, something in between? God trying to wake us up and using...
I think it could be. Someone on Facebook was asking me a couple of weeks ago about what I thought about the blood moons. We just had a lunar eclipse last week, the second part of the tetrad. And I firmly believe that it does have some sort of prophetic implications, and I'm not sure what it is. I'm no prophet or anything myself. I'm not going to pass myself off, but my hunch is that it's almost like a final countdown. And I'm looking at what have we seen from March to October, or I'm sorry, from April to October. In those 6 months, we've seen the rise of ISIS. We've seen meddling in the Ukraine, and then we've seen Ebola come over here. It almost feels like it's a final warning countdown, like a 1-year countdown to something, whether that's, some contend that it's the return of Christ in September of 2015 on the Feast of Trumpets, when that last lunar eclipse will occur. I tend to think that it's more the start point of the tribulation. Either that or maybe the midpoint of the tribulation. Maybe we're already in it. But I think it's more of like the last warning sign of look at all that's coming. The time of sorrows is really about to begin.
Well, I definitely believe that God uses both man-made disasters and natural disasters to wake his people up out of apathy and laziness.
Absolutely.
And get it focused on Christ. And that's kind of where I want to make the crux of my show is that I know there's going to be earthquakes. I know there may be, maybe in this world, some limited nuclear strikes. It doesn't make any difference what kills somebody. They're dead. So my goal as a Christian is, did that person know Jesus Christ's gospel and his saving grace, his saving ability before they died? I have to concern myself more, You know, if an earthquake comes and kills a certain number of people, or a limited nuclear strike kills a certain number of people, wars and rumors of wars is going to happen. It has to happen. It's going to come to pass. It was prophesied in the Bible. My goal as a Christian is I've got to make people aware that today is their day of judgment. Today could be your day. Don't let the thief overcome you as a thief in the night. You know, don't let him. So my contention is when somebody dies, they're lost or saved. Their future with Christ is set. They're either going to heaven or they're going to be in judgment. So when Christ talks about don't be caught like a thief in the night, don't let death catch you unprepared.
Right.
And so before that earthquake hits, before that limited nuclear holocaust comes, I have to make sure as a Christian I'm doing my job to preach that gospel, that good news that you can come in, you can have salvation, come into the shelter, come into the ark, be saved.
Right. And I agree totally. You have to be spiritually prepared. That being said, you take that spiritual preparedness and you also get yourself physically prepared to endure till the end as well.
Sure.
Because you are going to come under persecution. You are going to, as judgment is falling, yes, you are going to be offered protection. But, you know, it says many are killed in his name.
Well, I think we're going to see, I think this is the tip of the iceberg with this gay marriage, or not gay marriage, but these subpoenas that's been issued in Texas. I think this is the tip of the iceberg of the coming natural disasters, coming man-made disasters, coming deadly viruses that's going to start affecting this world.
Right.
And the only safety is under his wings. I heard a story about a guy that come home. He had a place built out in the wilderness, and he had a little log cabin, and he had an attached chicken shed. And it said that he came back to find his place burnt down to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
He went out to the chicken coop and was kicking around. And he saw a pile of burnt feathers on the ground, and he kicked those burnt feathers over, and 4 chicks bounced out just chirping alive.
Wow.
And what it is said is God will keep you safe. He will shield you with his feathers, and he will keep you safe under his wing. So that's a lesson that we need to be prepared. This has been Frankly Speaking with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Canuck, and we will return for our final segment.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you neat old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere. See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care. Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com.
Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
And we're back. with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk. Did you have some other stories you wanted to share? I want to give you time. If you had some things, you had some links.
I guess let's maybe continue a bit with what we were talking about. I complimented you during the break. I think that's the best segment we've ever done on that show.
Exactly. I mean, I guess we, as a Christian, we're supposed to have peace that passeth understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So in the midst of the chaos, and in the midst of the mayhem that's going on in the world around us, we as Christians are supposed to stand firm, stand our post, stand fast, and wait his return. And I mentioned that story of the 4 little chicks that come popping out when the man come home and found his cabin and his chicken coop burnt down. It just goes to show God's love and God's protection over his believers.
Absolutely.
And we have to, as Christians, seek for souls. And we're not necessarily supposed to worry and fret about everything that's going on in the world. We should be concerned.
We should be concerned. And that's not saying, ignore everything else. I guess what sticks in my craw is that you go into some of these churches and you see these people who will scoff and mock when you try to tell them just what is really going on. When you're saying, put away some food, get prepared. I've heard of people, good Christian people, who, the husband doesn't want to store away any food or something because, it's going to take too much room in the basement.
Sure.
What?
Well,
what? I mean, there's this attitude almost that, and then I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want to come across the wrong way. There's almost this attitude of, I'm just going to trust Jesus and he's going to take care of everything.
Sure.
And yes, he's going to take care of everything, but he's also given you a lot of opportunity and a lot of guidance for physical preparedness as well as spiritual preparedness.
Well, as example, I've been told that every devout Mormon is supposed to have at least a year's worth of food stored up.
Sure.
For some coming holocaust of man-made or natural proportions.
They also have secret underwear.
Yeah. Well, but the verse in the Bible where it talks about that, there's going to come a time that, not seen in the history of the world, that the world will be in so much turmoil that the people will literally throw their gold and silver in the streets because it will be of no value. It will be worthless.
Well, what will be of value?
So
dude?
you can't possibly plan for that period of time. But should a Christian own a gun?
Yes.
Should a Christian own some bullets? Should a Christian have some flashlights, some batteries, some candles, some extra food,
Absolutely.
some extra water?
It's foolish not to. There's even the parable about the foolish virgins, where they're gathering. You got the wise virgins who are
they had their oil.
They're gathering oil for their lamps, and they got the foolish virgins who don't. And then the bridegroom comes at night, and the ones who are wise and prepared, they're able to light the lamps and go to the wedding. And
part of it is that the propheticness that the master's delay would be, or the groom's delay would be held off for a while, for lack of a better word, and Christ's second coming would be postponed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Is it our fault? Is it Christ's fault? I tend to believe it's more ours because. The walk from...
Is it our fault? I'm sorry, that his return would be postponed?
Yes, I believe so, because...
Well, I don't know. I think that's... I've always interpreted... Well, not always, but my interpretation of, when he's talking about when he's coming back, when the disciples ask him, hey, when are you coming back? And he says, he goes through the seasons and everything. He doesn't... Right. He says, only God knows. Jesus said, I don't even know when I'm coming back. So I kind of take it to mean maybe there's not a firm date, but it's like when all the things are checked off on the list.
The lesson there for the virgins was, though, be prepared for this delay.
Right. Be prepared for the delay. And that's, you buy a year's worth of food and, nothing happens. Well, so what? You still have a year's supply of food.
I've used this analogy, speaking about Ed Fallon and his great March for Climate Change. It apparently was about an 11-day walk from Egypt into the Promised Land, if you walked it by foot. And Ed's walking somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 20 miles a day if he has a really good day.
And all he's gotten to is Gary.
And it's no, he's actually past Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow.
But I don't believe that God wanted to delay the Israelites going into the Promised Land any more than he wants to delay his second coming. So I think it's because of our apathy, our laziness, and ultimately he has foreknowledge that
he's got foreknowledge. He knows what's going to happen, but it's still up to us to meet those conditions. And I don't think he's not coming back, this is going to sound really weird, but when he returns, yes, it's going to be celebration, but it's also, he has to come back, because if he doesn't, no flesh will be left alive.
Exactly. That's true.
He's coming back because he says that the times are not shortened.
Exactly.
There's not going to be any flesh left alive. I have to come back. So
he comes back for the elect's sake, that no flesh would be saved if he doesn't. So I agree with you there.
So I don't know. I almost view it as sort of a good thing that we still have enough moral people in the world, when he doesn't come back, when those conditions are not met.
But eventually,
it's almost a good thing because we're still living for God. We're still enough people left that everything doesn't have to go down. We're holding back the tide of evil.
He has to settle this controversy between him and Satan that broke out in heaven.
Sure.
And he finally has to put an end to the rebellion and set the rebellion down, burn the wicked, rebuild the new earth. And then we live in the new earth forever and ever and ever, and he will wipe away the tears and wipe away the memory. But at some point, Satan and Satan's rebellion cannot continue forever.
Well, sure. I guess my point is I'm not so eager to see the fight break out. And if I can do my best, to hold back the tide of evil so that it doesn't have to happen.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I'm working for.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Obviously, you're concerned for family members, friends,
sure.
People who you want to know the truth.
Sure.
And you think if God grants more grace, they will have more opportunity. And we're supposed to be relentless in pursuit of our family and our friends and our neighbors.
And I think that's a great difference between Christianity and other religions like Islam, who are like, we can't wait to tear this thing down.
We can't
bring on the
wait
Mahdi
to get to Allah.
Get him out of that well. And
well,
we're like, we're supposed to be like, we can't wait to see Jesus, but we don't want to see the fight break out yet.
And I can't say all the words that Richard Pryor used to say, but he said, them double Muslims is the ones you got to fear the most. They can't wait to get to Allah and want to take 8 or 10 mother hunkers with them.
Yeah, well, it's not friendly Jesus coming back. It's Jesus coming back with a sword in his mouth.
Yeah,
to start hacking away.
Well,
maybe that's a kind of a crude way to put it, but
well,
anyway.
So you wouldn't describe Islam as a religion of peace.
Not exactly. Not exactly. I just came across a story while we were talking. I was talking about the government issuing visas to get Ebola people into the country. And Breitbart just posted something. DHS started expediting visa extensions from Ebola countries in August. So they knew this was coming, folks. As Ebola continued to ravage communities in West Africa this summer, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, a division under the Department of Homeland Security, announced immigration relief measures for citizens of 3 countries affected by the deadly virus. They are bringing them over here. They're trying to get this thing to spread, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, and with that, this has been this week's Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk. And if you like this program, be sure and share it with your family and friends, and encourage them to call. We like talking to ourselves, but we'd like to talk to some other folks also. So if you have an opportunity, share us with your friends and tell them what we're all about and that we make a little bit of sense here. So until next week, this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and co-host David Kanyuk.